Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of We Go Deep with Kat and Sara. Today, we thought we would talk about something that I've been playing with that I'm calling following the whispers. And so what does that mean? In any moment, following my next intuition or inkling or just the next, it feels like a whisper. Might be what to do next. If I have a big, to-do list, for the audio people, I just showed my to-do list. I used to get overwhelmed with prioritizing what to do next, or there's I work from home, so there's always a lot of possibilities of what to do next. I could do the dishes, I could pay my visa, I could write a blog. So I started tuning into what is it I want to do next, or even what do I want to eat for lunch, or what do I want to do now, or what book do I want to read, or at any moment, just small things. I find when I was starting to talk about this with a couple of clients, they immediately thought I meant big things like, oh, do you mean when I'm making a big decision? Well, yes, but in each moment as well. There's real power in following the whispers in the small things. Because then I think the big things end up being obvious if you're used to it, if you get a feel for yourself and what you want with the small things. You said you had a question for me, Kathleen.
Well, I think you answered it. Plus,
did I answer it?
And now this is, maybe I'm making this up, but are you suggesting that if we do that regularly with small things, then when big things come up, we are sort of familiar with the process? Are you suggesting that at all?
I think I am more than suggesting it. I think I'm just saying it.
You found that to be true for yourself if you play with operating in your life that way with the little things, then it's easier to be guided that way when bigger things come up. Has that been your experience?
Yes. Now I can't say anything really big has come up since I've been deliberately looking at this, but yeah, there's a few things. Also, the small things lead into, well, not always, but often a bigger decision. You might start to get an awareness that perhaps you want to move your house, maybe. I'm making this up, this isn't, but if you're really used to hearing the small whispers, you would probably get like an awareness of, I'd love to live in the mountains. And then, different things would come to you where, oh, look at that. I'm aware of a friend who lives there, or I'm aware of a house for sale there, or a real estate agent in my neighborhood popped up. And so it's like the big things, I don't think they come out of nowhere as easily if you're listening to the small whispers.
Say that again.
I don't think big things come out of nowhere as easily. Like you would sort of notice yourself, like I said, maybe wanting to move rather than it hitting you one day, like, oh crap, I really want to move. Or yeah, different situations would be different. It's not to say that something couldn't just happen all of a sudden, but if you get if you get a feel for yourself and knowing what you want, then it would be more obvious, that feeling.
Okay, so you said whisper, then you said a feeling. So can you give an example? Like, what is something recently where you
Yeah.
followed that, and what really was that whisper or feeling for you personally?
Well, I'm hesitating. I don't want there a long, I'm like thinking about it. I don't want that long pause on the recording. I recently became aware that I used to read more thriller novels, and I was a little bored with the romance novels I had been reading. Sort of little guilty pleasure romance novels. They're rather formulaic. I got a little, so some of the authors I used to read a long time ago were coming to mind. And then I happened, and I remembered, oh yeah, I used to like those books. And then I was at the drugstore yesterday or the day before, picking up deodorant for my daughter. And I happened to see a spy novel that was one of the authors that I used to like. He had a quote on the back of this novel saying how great a writer this other guy was. And I'd never read his book. And it was just, it felt like this pull. When I say feeling, that felt like this pull towards like, yeah, that'd be a fun book to read. And so I got it and I read it all weekend and it was super fun. And sometimes it'll be where I'll hear a voice or like my own voice. Sometimes I'll see words. So yeah, I might talk about it in different sensory things, but yeah, it's sort of a pull towards something or a push away from something.
Yeah. Very cool. So why would somebody want to experiment with this? Like what like, because in at some point you said this is powerful. And like, I don't know, what are some of the benefits of playing with this that you're experiencing?
Lots.
Well, just pick one, Sarah Joy.
I find I'm getting more done. Rather than being paralyzed by my to-do list and oh no, what should I do first? I'm just getting it done without thinking about it really. And it's more, and then the things I'm doing are the things I want to do. And so happiness and joy are part of it because I'm doing what I want to do. And then some of the things from my to-do list might get crossed off without being done because I don't really want to do them.
Did that surprise you? Because I imagine people listening might think, what? You're kidding me. I'm listening to the whisper. I'm listening to my own inner wanting. I'm doing those things and I'm getting more done, like counterintuitive for all the productivity and business success courses I've been through. They would probably tell you something that actually looked quite opposite to that. Get up in the morning when willpower is strong. Check those nasty ones off the list that you don't want to do. Get them done first thing in the morning, right? You remember those days?
Yeah.
Productivity from that, get the whip out and start beating yourself as soon as you have boots on the ground.
I actually used to do that, like do the things I didn't want to do, but then I didn't want to get out of bed. And then I'm like, oh no, I gotta do that. I gotta do those things.
So were you surprised to find out that in many ways you're getting more done and that I really don't want to do that?
Yes and no. Like I guess in deliberately starting to do this, I had a suspicion that it was true. I just hadn't really, looked at it in quite the same depth and like, oh no, it really is true. You get more done. You also kind of, it's like the universe conspires to bring things to you, which used to sound like a load of crap at one point in my life. Like there's many quotes. I think there's a famous one from Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson. I saw it last week. When you I won't get it quite right, but when you decide and get clear on what you want, the universe conspires to line it up.
I know the one you're,
I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And yes, it's true. And so the steps of the following the whispers feels like a path being laid out, kind of like, oh, here's the next step to what you want. Here's the next step. And it doesn't always look linear. Like, looking back, everything seems to tie together. But in the moment, I don't know. I think I just wanted to read a spy novel, to read something different and rest. Now, perhaps in a few months, looking back, I'll be like, oh my God, no, I don't know. But yeah.
Well, I think it's really cool that you were suspicious that this idea of listening to the whispers, following your wanting, made sense. And you were suspicious that it might work, but you actually had the lived experience of it. You took it on as a little experiment, you know. Isn't that cool? And so far,
So good. Yeah, I also know people who are successful and live that way. And I thought, okay, how curious. And then the people I know who live more in the motivation and like, oh, if you make one sales call, do 10, like the 10 times kind of people. It's exhausting. And I tried that for a long time. And even the people who teach that sort of thing, they end up getting burnt out. And when you get to know those people a little more deeply, you see they're exhausted. And then the people who are living by, say, following their wanting or following their whispers, they're not exhausted. And on paper, it looks like they're achieving a lot. Yeah, they have a lot of success by different measures. And so I thought, okay, well, let's just see, let's play with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say that, I've been playing with it myself, and it really hasn't been very far and not in the distant past that I ran my life the other way, with the driving, productivity, all the typical, the way you get things done and the way you lead a successful life. Not even Sarah Joy, not even really having a clue as to how stressful it was. Because when I let go just a little bit of that, I felt so much better. And then I saw another level. I'm like, oh, you went from 120 on a scale of 0 to 100 stress down to like about an 85. And then it was like, oh my gosh, there's even more letting go of this pressure to do and achieve. And I had the belief that it was possible to even live a fuller, live life with possibilities that I couldn't imagine by letting go of those reins, right? It's almost like escaping from a box. But I find it, the old way, still very, very habitual. It isn't really that I don't trust. It's just like, oh my gosh, I've been doing it the other way for so long and it worked. But why would I want to keep, having that level of stress in my life if I can have the same life or possibly an even more richer experience of life that I can't imagine if I just follow those little tugs on my soul, follow the little breadcrumbs that this deeper intelligence, or God, or whatever you want to call it, is laying out in front of me. And I think maybe for some people, if there is some suspicion and not trusting and maybe not having much of an experience of it, starting with little things, that makes a lot of sense. I started with some big ones because honestly, I hit kind of a brick wall and I just couldn't do it the old way. But
Mm.
then I did it. I made a couple of big decisions and I stopped doing some things and I started doing some other things kind of from that place. And then there was that, little voice in my head that wanted to say, yeah, well, that's fine for now. But so, do you foresee, do you have anything big coming up that you're going to experiment with?
Like a big decision or a big,
Yeah, or a direction, like a big new direction you want to go. And I'm not saying that you do or you should or anything like that, but just curious since you've been playing with little things.
well, and I call it little things. I'm starting now. To my clients, it may not look like anything much different because I've been writing a blog since almost a year now. But I'm going to separate out my chiropractic business from my coaching business and have two businesses, because it just makes it easier for clarity for clients. I think people who come from different referral sources, but also it makes it easier for regulatory things, because one is regulated and one isn't. And so it seems momentous, like I could make it into a big thing. Because when you say big thing, I was like, oh, well, starting a whole new business is kind of a quote unquote big thing. However, I kind of came to the realization of, oh, just have two websites that have them linked and ta-da. And so it feels like a small thing because I kind of came to it through those small little steps. So I almost said, oh, I'm not doing anything big or different. I guess I'm in the process of figuring out what I would like this new website to look like. And then what would the content be and creating that. So again, it just feels like step by step, like, okay, we're looking at WordPress and we're looking at this and we're looking at that. And that doesn't feel like a really huge thing. It's like, okay, well, today it occurred to me, well, maybe not today, but next time I have some time, it occurs to me to watch a couple of videos about setting up that kind of website. There's a ton of videos. My kids would laugh at me because like my daughter taught herself how to create digital art and all this programs and what she needed, and self-taught. She's 11 and she just went online and watched YouTube videos and taught herself. And both my kids are like, I don't understand why I have to go to school, mommy. Everything's on YouTube. You just watch videos. So this revelation, I'm gonna watch videos.
Well, Sarah, I can't say that right now a concrete example is coming to mind, but I've had the same experience that, at least this is what my experience was, that I can't recall a specific one, but something that looked like a big project or a big decision. And especially when I approached it, I'm going to say in the old framework of, like an engineering project, mapping it out and here's what I got to do. Like it looked very overwhelming. And when I just said, well, maybe I want to play with this, or today I feel like, looking at, in your case, like someone else who did a similar website and I know, and it's driving me crazy because I can't think of an example, but it was very similar where all of a sudden something that looked overwhelming, like a big project, and it was going to take a massive decision, just became so apparently step by step and not necessarily linear, but easier, like just with such ease that by just listening to whispers or an inner knowing, and I imagine that following that inner guidance, or however a person wants to label it for them, it can be a little bit different for each one of us, but it's there, that, like, living life, running a business, being guided by that is not that difficult. And things do seem to work out. I mean, they don't, sometimes an idea, quote unquote, fails, but oh well, even doing it the other way, So anyway, hopefully I'm not like making things more confusing, but whatever you said before I started talking, yeah, I've had the same experience.
Yeah, life in what I'm calling following the whispers, just the moment to moment sort of next thing that occurs to you, it makes everything so easy. And I'm still a little fascinated, like, whoa, is it really that simple? Is it really that easy? And if something doesn't occur to me, then I wait.
Yeah.
That seems like, I'm laughing because it seems like bananas. Like, you could just wait.
Here's an example. I almost always do my annual continuing education unit CEU requirements in June. And like 2 days ago, I went, oh my gosh, it's July. I didn't do my CEUs. Well, it's based on my birth date and all that. So I have until December 31st. And it just so happens that I decided I was going to take most of the month of July off. And yeah, I mean, I got to sit down and I got to do this, but it's no big deal. But instead of like having it on the calendar and looking, 2 months ago, I'm looking at it, I'm kind of going like, not my favorite thing to do. I didn't forget about it. It just occurred to me. And now it feels like, well, yeah, like July feels like a great time to do it. It's really hot down here in Texas. And to me, that's kind of the example of just relaxing without this like really structured plan. And that, because I think a lot of people might think, well, yeah, but you got to get those really important things done. Well, yeah, you do. And you do them. And I think when we're like, I don't really want to do the CEUs, but I don't not want to do them because I want to keep my license to practice, and it's just, I don't know, there's just a whole lot less drama, I guess, around it for me. And right before we jumped on the call, I went on to the website where I usually do them, and I looked, and there's 3 days in a row, the last week of July, and boom, it's on my calendar. When we hang up here, I'm gonna get my credit card out and good to go.
Cool. The phrase has been coming to me recently, positioning yourself in the flow of life. And that's kind of what it feels like you're doing with, or I'm doing, or we're doing with the following, the inklings, the whispers, the nudges. And it's not even that you're going with the flow. Used to feel like I was doing something, or like I had to, like a doing. This feels like I'm just literally positioning myself in a flow that's already there. And then things start to happen and I don't feel like I'm doing anything. From the outside, people would see me do things. I mean, I did laundry yesterday. Yeah, positioning in the flow of life, that sort of came to mind when you're talking about the continuing education credits.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
It's just easy, and it just, life happens. And
I think, what just occurred to me really is that something around control. Like, I think we don't have a lot of control, and yet we do. But it's a lot easier to trust that, if we're pointed in that direction, if we're in the flow, if we're in the river and we're going downstream and letting life carry us, we're going to the destination. The journey's going to be beautiful. And why turn around and paddle upstream when there's a lot of cool stuff downstream?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, that came up for me, like how much control. I guess that's a good one for another podcast. How much control do we have anyway?
Yeah. Yeah, that is an interesting topic. I'm gonna write it down.
Cool. Well, if we feel inclined, if the whisper is
Yeah,
there when we jump on our call next week, we'll go head in that direction.
for sure.
But if we feel a soul tug to explore something else, we'll probably do that.
We will probably do that. Cool. Anything else about following the whispers this week?
No, I think it would be cool for our listeners to sort of pay attention to how that arises for themselves. Like,
Mhm.
in what way do they hear or feel or know or sense? Or is it, does life orchestrate circumstances? Just kind of paying attention to something that's there that sometimes we're not paying attention to.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's often slower and quieter than people think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I used to look for a big crescendo. It's rarely that for me. Rarely.
Yeah. Can be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not nearly. That's rare, I think, in my world.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Well, so people can experiment and see what happens. Yeah, so thanks for listening, everyone. And that's been We Go Deep with Kat and Sara. Bye.
Bye.